Hi everyone, I'm Unique Lumia, also known as Mia, and in this YouTube video, I will be telling you guys about the broken windows policy. Should be noted before we start, all information is based on a research paper that I wrote for one of my criminal justice classes, and the information from that paper came from academic journal articles, which are peer reviewed by experts in the criminal justice field who has a PhD and or accredited websites, guys. Obviously, laws are constantly being implemented and changing, and I wrote this paper back in 2023. So perhaps when I tell you something, you may say, hey, I heard something different based on 2024 data. That's okay because laws are constantly changing. However, the core foundations of the policy, which I'm going to tell you, and the history remains the same. Broken windows policing, also known as zero tolerance policing, emerged in the 1980s. And when it emerged, essentially police departments and thus police officers believed, and they still believe it somewhat in society, that by lowering crime rate in a specific community will then automatically create a specific environment where community members will receive better jobs, better funding for schools, and it'll just be like a better positive community with less crime. So though this may be true, the problem with this type of policing, broken windows policing or zero tolerance policing, is two problems that I like to speak about. One, most of those police resources and quote unquote communities that has the highest crime rates is most often minority communities that and low income communities, which contains African American individuals, Hispanic individuals, essentially people of color. And when these police officers go in these communities, because with the broken windows policing, police officers and police departments, they're sending the majority of their officers to walk that community. Officers are in that community 24/7, and there's something known as the self-fulfilling prophecy. And the self-fulfilling prophecy, guys, it works positively and negatively. So for example, let's say in my case, when I use the self-fulfilling prophecy positively, every start of a new school semester, I'm saying I want to get all A's in my classes. If it's a challenging class, I may change my mind in the middle of the semester and say, I just want to be in this class. So that conscious belief that I'm going to get this A or that I'm going to get this B in this class, it allows me to consciously and sometimes unconsciously engage in behavior that will allow me to get the result that I want. So it'll allow me to engage in behavior that saying I'm going to allocate 5 hours a day to studying. I'm going to make sure I meet my professors via office hours. I'm going to make sure I ask the professor if there's extra credit. I'm essentially going to consciously and unconsciously engage in behavior which will allow me to get the desired outcome. So when we're looking at broken windows policing, that has the idea that, okay, police departments believe if I put 20 officers compared in a low income community compared to a high income community where there's only 5 officers, and these 20 officers in this low income community is going to have their presence known, is going to make sure that they know, that they tell the residents, if you commit a crime, I'm going to be here to protect you, or I'm going to arrest the culprit. And automatically that will create a safer environment for you and your children and allow your income to increase. That's not true, because these young adolescents or even sometimes adults can see these police officers in their communities, in front of their schools, in front of their local supermarket, and wonder in their head, why are you here? I'm not a criminal. I didn't do anything. I don't know anyone who committed a crime. So why are you patrolling my community 24/7? And this conscious belief can turn into saying, okay, you're here because you think I'm a criminal. So I'm just going to commit a crime anyway, because you already think I'm a criminal. I'm not a criminal, but according to self-fulfilling prophecy, this negative belief. And therefore, with all that in mind, we can say or infer that the broken windows policing, it's problematic because it promotes implicit biases to emerge. And implicit biases are generally biases that we don't know we have. So let's say you grew up in a particular community and you move out of that community, and for the first time ever, you're in a diversified world with people who look different than you, speak different than you, eat different food than you, and you automatically say, ew, I don't want to taste that food. Hey, that's not how this is. That is you implicit bias. Sometimes the best example I can do, once again, going back to a racial example, because that's like the easiest one for people to process, you're in an elevator and somebody clutches their bag when somebody of a particular race or demographic enters. That is a form of implicit bias that you are engaging in. So officers, when they have this broken windows policing and they go in low income communities, this implicit bias can then say, hey, if I see a Hispanic individual or if I see somebody of like an African American descent, I'm going to search you. I'm just going to pull you over, ask you some questions, and just automatically search you because I have this belief that following the broken windows policing, I'm supposed to do this. I can do this because it's for the betterment of the community. But in actuality, you're relying on racism and unfair practices to do that, guys. Or it encourages racial profiling, as I said, discrimination, and the over-enforcement of laws, especially for minor crimes, which is harmful and unfair because in middle-class white communities, some officers, they may let citizens off with a warning. One perfect example of this is saying, if we're in a white community and somebody is speeding, and the officer stops the individual and they see the individual's white, or the individual can even be like Asian in that community. And the officer's like, hey, just want to let you know you were speeding, but I'm going to let you off with a pass here. It's okay. They let that person off with a pass who comes from the high income community. However, if an individual who from that same high income community is Black and they stop them, they may give that individual a ticket just because of their race. Or looking at a low-income community, if somebody's speeding or jaywalking, for example, and they stop them and give them a ticket for those actions, that's the over-enforcement of laws, and it also takes the fairness out of police systems and the criminal justice system. Because I'm assuming, based on research, at the end of the year, officers generally, they have to meet some type of quota. That's not good to meet a quota. I can make a separate video on that, guys. But generally, they have a diagram. If you look at police officers' websites or police department websites, it shows you the specific demographics, a community, what type of crime was most present in that community. And the over-enforcement of laws can inflate crime in a low-income community compared to a high-income community. And when I say over-inflation, that occurs because laws aren't being properly implemented by police officers depending on where they are placed and what that police officer wants to do, essentially. Because officers, they're great. They protect society sometimes, but at the same time, guys, there is a lot of free will. They can essentially decide when to enforce the law, how to enforce the law, but the main way to change that is just additional training. And one thing being a criminal justice grad student has shown me, guys, is that police departments, they're not really open for or willing for research to be conducted on their practices or to allow outside individuals to come in and provide them with recommendations. Somebody who works in like the federal government, state government, and you have areas to make changes within law enforcement, or if you're a police officer yourself who is watching this video, the best way to make change within communities, guys, don't use zero tolerance policing. Do not use the broken windows policing, because that policy was essentially made to enforce and establish a boundary line of racial discrimination in the American government, guys. If you want to make change, work with community members. If you want to place police officers in a specific community, and it could be, honestly, you're just doing that to protect community members, make that information widespread so community members know why you are here. So they're just not looking at you wondering, why are police officers here? Did something happen? Are they watching me? What's going on? Make that information clear why multiple officers are in that community. Also, you should allow your patrol officers to work with community members, especially community leaders. So if you're placing police officers in a community that is very religious, most members attend church every Sunday, or let's say there is a community center that a lot of the members visit, make sure those police officers are going to those leaders and to those local events to introduce themselves to the community and to essentially tell them, hey, I'm just here to make sure everything is going well, and if you ever have a problem, if you ever feel unsafe, you can directly come to me. And research has been shown that if this type of practice is implemented, most often when a crime is committed, somebody knows who committed the crime, they may be more willing to go directly to that officer to report the crime because they know that they're not going to be penalized, or they know why that officer is there. You're not the odd man out anymore. You're integrated into that community. However, some warning should be still present, guys. Don't place officers who live in that community to be patrolling that community. Conflict of interest, guys. And if you find that an officer is getting too engaged in the community, you can say, or building too many close relationships with the community members, you may want to swap out that officer and put a new one in, because we do want positive relationships to be there. However, we do not want them to be too close, because I will make a separate video on that. But there's something known as police officer code and corrupt police officers, and that can result in something that's not good to happen. So hopefully you enjoyed this little video about broken windows policing, guys. I'll be making more criminal justice videos very soon, as well as public administration videos. Remember, like the video and feel free to leave a comment.